Thank you so much and Assalamu alaikum. Come on, you can do a little better than that. अभी आप इतने excited हुए पहले इससे पहले वाला जो keynote था उसमें, so come on, you can be a little bit more. Assalamu alaikum. All right. Before I begin, I want to just acknowledge your great talk, Dr. Nadia Bukhari, and your work on gender parity in leadership is extremely important. And I want to tell you that at Aga Khan, as Dean, I'm brand new. I've been Dean at Aga Khan about 100 days. And I know Pakistan mein 100 days ke baare mein baat karna is not a good idea. But here I am. And in my first 100 days, I will tell you that I've made 3 major appointments. The first was an associate dean for CPE. That was to Dr. Natasha Ali. The second one was the chair of our Department of Basic Biological Sciences. That's Dr. Gulsum Ghyas. She's the first female biological scientist. She's a cancer biologist who's now the chair of that large department. And the third was the chair of our Appointments and Promotions Committee, and that is Dr. Shanaz Ibrahim. So it just happens that the first 3 appointments are all women at Aga Khan. Now coming to the conference today, before I really truly start talking, I want to thank all of you. As a surgeon and as a physician, I want to thank the pharmaceutical manufacturers of this country who make medicine accessible to our patients. All physicians need to understand that. We salute you and thank you for making it possible for us to cure patients. So thank you very, very much. Now, as an academic, I, of course, have to give you my disclaimers. Up above are the grants that I have been funded by for my research. And below here is the company that you see over there, Doctella, which has been recently acquired by Massimo. This is a company that I was involved with. And today what I'm going to talk about is first I'm going to give you an idea about the research that I have done that led to eventually working on Doctella. And then I'm going to give you that whole story. And then I'll talk a little bit more about Doctella. My real disclaimer, though, is that I know many of you are in the room and आप ये सोच रहे हैं कि ये वाकई आगा खान का नया डीन है. He doesn't look like a dean. ये तो बहुत young लग रहा है. Maybe he has too much hair on his head. And अभी आपने मुझे कहा कि आप आदिल हैदर हैं. आप तो मुझे लग रहा था कि आप बहुत लंबे हैं यहाँ से. But I want you to know that I actually feel like I am the luckiest graduate from Aga Khan University. So I am the first graduate from Aga Khan who has come back to Aga Khan to become the Dean of Aga Khan. And I don't think this is a personal achievement, honestly. I think this is an achievement of the Aga Khan University that they can take a bacha, a teenager, this is my first day at medical college, and then make him into a doctor, and then within 20 years, the medical college can then bring him back as the dean of a medical college. And thank you. And you know, there were 2 very specific things of the Aga Khan education that made this happen. The first thing is that our curriculum focuses, and still does, focuses 20% of all of its efforts on community health sciences. And this training in community health sciences allows us to learn a lot about diversity and pluralism, a lot about equity, but most importantly about service. How do you serve people who have less than what you have? The other big thing about the Aga Khan education is that when we graduated, the president at that time said to me, look, you're from Aga Khan, you're from the best place. Now wherever you go, you need to go to the best place in the world. So literally, based on that comment, मैंने phone मिलाया to one of the most famous scientists at Johns Hopkins when I was at Aga Khan. And I said, मैं Aga Khan से हूँ और I want to come be a researcher. And जैसे stories होती हैं ना movies में, literally she said, she picked up the phone, this famous person, and she said, अच्छा आप आके मुझे मिल लें. And I went there and she gave me a job the same afternoon because I was from Aga Khan. Now later on over my career, I trained there, and this was at Johns Hopkins. And then I became a surgeon there. But this all happened because of the dedication and spirit that Aga Khan and particularly Pakistani ethos had put into me of working hard and trying to make a difference. Now, as I moved forward, this spirit of service continued. And at some point, maine socha ki, I'm going to go like a lot of these global surgeons, and I'm going to go work in the bush somewhere in deep in Africa or somewhere deep in a very remote place. And I had done some of that work out in places in South Africa. But then when I came back to Baltimore, jahan pe I was finished kar raha tha apni training at Johns Hopkins, my mentor, his name was Eddie Cornwell, and he said to me, कि भाई अगर आपको गरीब लोगों का ख्याल रखना है तो आपको वापस पाकिस्तान जाने की या अफ्रीका जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, यहाँ पे बाल्टिमोर में इतनी ज़रूरत है, यहाँ पे बहुत सारे गरीब लोग हैं, आप यहीं पे काम शुरू कर लें. And so that's what I began to do. I became a trauma surgeon at Johns Hopkins. At that point in time, there was a lot of work being done on what is called healthcare disparities. So there's a lot of information in the United States that people of different races, specifically African Americans, they get much poor access to healthcare. We know about the healthcare disparities in our country, and we of course know that based on the ability to pay, there's a big disparity in what you can get for healthcare. But in the United States, especially in the emergency room, the idea is that, emergency में तो हर आदमी को care मिल जाएगी, ambulance आ जाएगा, emergency room ले जाएंगे, so of course everybody will get proper care, right? I mean, do you agree? Do you think so? Right? So in the emergency department, there should be no healthcare disparities, right? हम TV देखते हैं, TV में वो बंदे को गोली लगती है, फौरन उसको ER ले आते हैं, doesn't make a difference who the person is, right? But turns out that we did research and we found that if you take a white patient and you compare that white patient to a black patient, the black patient here, the second bar to the right, that black patient has a 20% increased odds of death. And if you take a Hispanic patient, that person has a 50% increased odds of death. और अगर बंदे के पास insurance ना हो, and they get, चाहे white हो, and they get injured, similar injury के साथ, they have a 50% increased odds of death, and if they're a minority, then that actually increases the chance, and so it becomes 80% increased odds of death. Yeah, आप देखें second last bar जो है, about, right? So now, when this information was published, it became like a really big deal. Okay, oh my God, there are healthcare disparities in emergencies as well. So how are we going to fix this? So we applied the public health problem-solving approach. So now I come back to what I learned at Aga Khan, literally in my second year. Okay, how do you do things from a public health standpoint? And that's what we started working on. We wrote many publications. Right? We wrote lots and lots of papers to understand why these healthcare disparities occur. And then we came up with a model to say that there are about 5 different reasons why healthcare disparities occur. Usme se ek reason jo hai is the patient-provider interaction. So what we found was that the way patients and providers, hum jo doctor hain, hum jis tarah se patient se baat karte hain, that has a lot to do with healthcare disparities. कि हम किसी से अगर अच्छी तरह से बात करेंगे तो वो patient अच्छी तरह से comply भी करेगा. But if we talk poorly to a patient, they're not going to understand what needs to be done, and we're not going to take good care of them. This, of course, becomes a very sensitive topic, right? Because question ये कि really do doctors, चाहे अमेरिका में, चाहे पाकिस्तान में, do we treat people differently based on who they are? कि मरीज़ हमारे पास आया और जिस तरह से हमको वो लग रहा है, do we give them different medicine based on who this person is? And मेरे ख्याल में people do not want to treat people differently. कोई डॉक्टर नहीं बनता कि मैं इसको ऐसे ट्रीट करूँगा और उसको वैसे ट्रीट करूँगा. मगर ये होता है कि maybe we have unconscious preferences, right? कि हम we grow up with some ideas, and because of those ideas, we say कि इस बंदे को ऐसे ट्रीट करना चाहिए, right? And that's where I think a lot of these problems occur. There's a lot of research done on this. There's this thing called the implicit association test. You can go take it yourself if you'd like. And that can tell you if you have a preference towards one thing or the other. And we did a lot of research in which we showed that that most surgeons, most doctors, they have a preference towards whites. So in the United States, we did this on many, many people, and we found that most of the doctors actually prefer white people. And that leads to significant disparities. We did this in multiple different studies on different types of doctors and also on nurses. And we found this thing happen again and again and again. This research then became what was then known as the National Disparities Action Plan, and this led to a significant amount of research in this field, even more. And then finally, what this research basically showed is that when there is a difference in the patient, white patient, black patient and white doctor, the interaction becomes a little different. And because of the communication disparity, eventually there's a difference in how that patient gets treated, and that is why a lot of disparities occur. Okay, so I gave you this entire background of my entire research career in just a few minutes to explain how this company, Doctella, came about, right? Which is why you guys invited me here today. And ये जो Doctella हमने company बनाई, वो इसलिए बनाई because my older brother, उसके बच्चों में, he had some issues with his children. And so he's a parent, he's an entrepreneur in California, and I used to live in Baltimore. वो मुझे फ़ोन करता था कि भाई अभी हम डॉक्टर के पास बच्चे को लेंगे, अब वो डॉक्टर ये कह रहा है. अब हम डॉक्टर के पास सर्जन के पास बच्चे लेंगे, अब वो ये कह रहे हैं. So we realized that every time a patient goes to the doctor, right? And my brother has all sorts of access, has all sorts of means. His brother is a surgeon at a famous hospital, and even he can't understand what's going on, right? And to understand what to do, he would always call me and ask. तो मैं ये सोचता था कि भाई जिनका कोई भाई बहन नहीं है डॉक्टर, तो वो क्या करते होंगे, right? And why is it that we've done so much with medicine, but we haven't figured out how to easily communicate with patients? Why is it that we haven't figured out a way कि एक patient को हम instructions दें and we make sure that the patient's able to follow instructions? Why can't we just do that? And literally हम ये बात कर रहे थे, तो my brother had just finished one of his startup companies. So he said, ऐसे करते हैं, हम इसके ऊपर एक company बनाते हैं, right? And that's actually where Doctella started. Now, just to give you an idea of what the problem was with his daughter, it's actually a very good story. His daughter was actually born with club foot. आपको पता है club foot क्या है? जहाँ पे पाँव ऐसे मुड़ा होता है ना अंदर, ठीक है? तो ये उसकी तस्वीर है, actually मेहर नाम है उस बच्ची का, and she had club foot का problem, and she got treated, and mashallah, she's totally fine now. But the good part about that story is because Meher had this, अभी हम Indus Hospital की बात कर रहे थे, Amir and other people got together and created this Pehla Kadam program at Indus Hospital. And since that program started, they have treated now about 2,000 children in Pakistan with clubfoot through that program, right? Through this thing. So there's actually a good story to this. Now, the other thing that, of course, came from this whole thing that happened to Meher was this company, Doctella. And I'll give you an example of how this relates to the pharmaceutical industry. This is a pathway for overactive bladder, right? So if patient has overactive bladder, you guys have some medicine that we can give to the patient on how to take care of this, right? Now, this pathway, as you see it, is actually very, very complex, right? And the idea here is that can we get a digital some sort of digital technology to make this pathway very easy so the patient can understand what's supposed to happen. And that's exactly what we built with Doctella. We basically built a mobile app that would have your doctor, जो भी आपका doctor है, उसको हम थोड़ी देर के लिए record कर लेते थे, and then we would have them introduce the pathway, okay, what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to go on some sort of complicated medication. The doctor would give a couple of minute introduction, and then the pathway would take over. Now, this was done for a variety of different things. It was done for medications, and these two examples, it's done first how to do, for example, agar aapki colonoscopy ho rahi hai, to how you do your bowel prep, right? And the other example, it's for a surgery. तो जैसे कि आपकी कोलन की सर्जरी हो रही है, उससे पहले आपने कुछ बाउल प्रेप करनी है, फिर उसके बाद आपने कुछ दवाएं लेनी है, then what time you have to come to the hospital, then after you get discharged from the hospital, all the instructions. It gave all that information. The trouble was when we first built it, it was not connected to the electronic health record. And that's why we had trouble with adopting it. Then we said it was a good thing and it was good for patient education, but physicians really, really weren't thrilled with using it because you know what was not in it? They could not monitor what was happening with the patients. So then, into this thing, we built remote patient monitoring capacity. So what we did is that you could take a iWatch or something and you could wear it, and then it could log into the system and tell us exactly how the patient's heart rate was, and so on. And based on that, now the app could tell you exactly what to do. तो आज सर्जरी हो गई आपकी, आज ये तीसरा दिन है, आज आपको अब ये चीज़ें करनी है. And God forbid your heart rate goes up or you have some sort of problem that your watch could detect, it would send a message to the doctor who could then intervene. Now, even with all that, there was a very, very slow take-up of this thing until this thing came, CPT code 99091. This made it a reimbursable thing. Okay, if the doctor looks at the remote patient monitoring, the doctor could actually bill for it. Does that make sense? So now all of a sudden the doctors actually can get paid to look at the remote patient monitoring. All of a sudden the interest in this thing increased pretty dramatically. We also got a lot of interest from pharma. And what happened with pharma is that there are complicated medications, like telling you एक overactive bladder था, उसमें apart from medication, there are other things. But what about things like Accutane or retinoid, right? जो very complicated हैं for dermatology and stuff. And for those medications, what Doctella did was give information to the patient to make sure they are following all the instructions on this. And this is where pharma thought there was a big opportunity, that you could capture patients, and get direct interaction with the patient. You see, the issue is that a lot of pharma companies want to have interaction directly with the patient. And this seemed to be an opportunity to do that. The data that was generated through all this actually remained the property of the patient. That was the big innovation here. Okay, all the data was not kept in the cloud by us. We let the patient have all the data themselves. And they control access to who would have the data. And they control access on where the data is. You see, this was true patient-centeredness. Because this company was mostly built by engineers and people whose family members had problems and so on, versus people who were just trying to, make money off of their data. I wanted to give this message very specifically that, if you use mobile technology, you can really communicate directly with the patients and even monitor through wearable devices and so on how patients are using your medications, right? Suppose you have a patient who is on a blood pressure medication, right? You sell a blood pressure medication. With the medication, you offer a free app, right, which they can manage their blood pressure medication all the time, right? And help provide some sort of service to them so that you're actually taking care of the patient. Remember, you're selling them not just a piece of medicine. You're selling them a improvement in their life, right? That's what you're trying to sell, not just a pill. And that's why I think remote patient monitoring can really help make this thing happen. Now, the company that we built, Doctella, was then finally acquired by Massimo, which is this other company for remote patient monitoring. And our hope is that, inshallah, this small startup company that we built will now get a lot more mass access to bigger markets and so on. Also, I finished working in the United States this last year, so the fact that this thing got acquired also enabled me to move back to Pakistan and come back to work at Aga Khan. Now, before I leave, I want to just make a few comments on mobile tech and just impress on you that it will definitely change how healthcare is being done. One thing when I got to Aga Khan that I was very impressed by is this thing called Family Hifazat that we have, where we already have an app where you can go on and you can see exactly what's going on with your medication, with your lab tests and so on. This is only going to grow. And those of you in the pharma industry who are going to latch on to the mobile wave, especially with more expensive medications, this is only going to help. The next thing that also is on the horizon is the electronic health records. Many large hospital systems are definitely going all electronic. We just heard about Indus Hospital that's already electronic. Aga Khan, of course, innovated electronic health record systems in the 1980s in Pakistan, and of course still has a very advanced EHR system. We have all the medications on there and so on. As we process all that big data, the need for exactly what kind of medication where is going to be more apparent. And that's another big opportunity, I think, for the pharma industry. The other big, I think, opportunity in Pakistan right now is clinical trials, right? Clinical trials, is waqt in Pakistan, we're seeing very few. If you look at the top 10 countries, right, that are doing clinical trials in Pakistan, you might notice that, top 10 countries in Asia, you might notice that Pakistan is not even on the chart yet, right? So I would encourage you to think about how we can get more clinical trials in Pakistan. If you look at this chart, you're going to see a country, our friendly country of Bangladesh. They're on that chart, but we're not on the chart for clinical trials. And there are many opportunities to do clinical trials in Pakistan, especially with our regulatory environment, and we can do them in a very ethical way. I truly believe that there are very ethical ways to do clinical trials, and there's a good national regulatory system for it. It takes a little bit of time. Maybe there's some stuff that's duplicative that we can improve, but still we can do it. And that's why at Aga Khan we have invested very heavily in a clinical trials unit. Our unit there, it's purpose-built. It was started, initially idea was in the early 2000s, and then by 2012, they had a beautiful purposely built unit. And the trials that are done through that unit are really done at full international standards. Recently, they've also acquired the ability to do very good bioequivalence studies, which I think might be of interest, especially to pharmacy manufacturers in Pakistan. So if that's something that you're interested in, the clinical trials unit, of course, at AKU could be of assistance to you. And I just, wanted to show you a few pictures of the facility that we have. We've had external auditors from around the world come look at it and make sure that it's up to snuff. So I'll just finish with the fact that mobile health enhances the patient experience. And I have learned from my own family how this has helped us, learning better how to interact with the physicians. It definitely improves care and outcomes, and it will definitely be a competitive advantage if you invest in developing mobile health. And in Pakistan, it's going to be tough for us to compete in basic molecular science and so on. But for clinical trials and other things where we have need for intelligent, smart people, mashallah, in Pakistan, we have a lot of intelligent, smart people. And that's why I think we can have a very big opportunity to advance medicine through this kind of work. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for asking me to be here, and I've been thrilled to be here. Thank you very much.